The human traveler, Ethan, stepped off the transport shuttle and looked around the alien palace courtyard. The sky above was tinted purple, with two moons casting a silver glow across the marble towers. The air felt heavy with strange energy, and every shadow seemed alive. Ethan had been sent as a cultural exchange officer, but deep inside he felt like a stranger in a place that did not want him. The palace was quiet, too quiet, as if the walls were watching him. His escort left him with a single instruction: do not wander at night, before disappearing into the halls. Ethan was alone, carrying his small bag, wondering if he had made a mistake coming here. That was when he saw her. A young maid stood at the far end of the hall, her silver eyes glowing faintly even in the dim light. She bowed slightly, her dark hair falling over her face, and whispered, "Follow me, human." Her voice was soft but carried a strange power, like a secret waiting to be told. Ethan followed her through endless corridors of shining crystal walls. She walked with grace, her steps silent, almost floating across the polished floor. Finally, she stopped at a chamber door carved with alien runes. "This is your room," she said, her tone calm, but her eyes lingered on him for a moment longer than expected. Then she added in a low whisper, "My name is Lyra," before she slipped away into the darkness of the palace. That night, Ethan could not sleep. The bed was soft, but his mind was restless. He kept hearing the echo of her whisper, the way she had said her name, the way her eyes had seemed to search through him. Every creak of the palace made him sit up, listening, waiting. Outside the window, the twin moons moved slowly, casting silver patterns across the floor. Near midnight, Ethan heard a faint sound. It was not footsteps, not a voice, but a soft hum, almost like singing. Curiosity pulled him from the bed, even though he remembered the warning, "Do not wander at night." He opened the door and stepped into the corridor, the sound pulling him like a magnet. He followed the hum through the empty halls until he reached a garden glowing under starlight. The maid, Lyra, was standing there, her back to him, her hands raised to the sky. Her body shimmered as if light was moving under her skin. The sight froze Ethan in place, breath caught in his chest. Then she spoke, her voice clear and soft, but carrying across the garden. "Human, watch me change." Ethan's heart pounded. He did not know if he should turn away, but he could not move. Her form flickered, her skin glowing, faint scales appearing across her arms. Her silver eyes burned brighter, her shadow stretching unnaturally long across the ground. He wanted to ask what was happening, but the words died in his throat. She turned her head slightly, enough for him to see her face. There was no fear in her expression, only sadness and challenge. "Do not look away," she whispered again, softer this time, almost pleading. The words struck him deeper than he could explain. He did not know why, but he felt he had to obey. For a moment, time seemed to stop. The stars above burned brighter, the garden shimmered, and Lyra's form shifted between human and something more. It was beautiful, terrifying, and unforgettable. Finally, the glow faded, her body returning to normal, her breath heavy. She lowered her hands and looked at him, her silver eyes full of secrets. Ethan stepped forward without thinking. What did I just see?" he asked, his voice shaking. Lyra only shook her head, a faint smile on her lips. "You saw nothing," she whispered, though they both knew it was a lie. Then, without another word, she vanished into the palace shadows, leaving him standing alone under the twin moons. Ethan returned to his chamber, his heart racing. He sat on the edge of the bed, staring at the door. He knew he should be afraid, maybe even leave, but instead he felt drawn deeper. The words repeated in his mind again and again. "Human, watch me change." He did not understand what it meant, but he knew one thing. He would never forget that moment, and he could not look away. Ethan woke the next morning with a restless mind. The memory of Lyra glowing in the garden haunted him. He tried to convince himself it had been a dream, but the scent of alien flowers still clung to his clothes. Every time he closed his eyes, he saw her silver gaze and heard her whisper, "Human, watch me change." The palace was busier during the day. Servants moved silently through the halls. Guards marched with their strange weapons, and nobles with jeweled skin walked past without looking at him. Ethan felt invisible, except when Lyra appeared at his side. She brought him food, guided him to the council chamber, and answered his questions with short, careful words. But her eyes always held something deeper, as if she wanted to speak but dared not. When the day ended, Ethan sat in his chamber, staring at the crystal walls. The warning not to wander at night echoed in his mind. But curiosity burned stronger, and he knew he could not ignore the strange hum he had heard before. So when the moons rose again, he followed the sound. This time Lyra was not in the garden, but in a hidden corridor lined with mirrors. Each mirror reflected not only her form, but flickers of something else. Shadows with wings, scales of light, fragments of another being. Ethan froze as he watched her place her hand on the glass, and her reflection rippled as though alive. She whispered again, "Do not look away," and her body began to shift. Her skin shimmered with pale blue light, thin lines tracing across her arms like rivers of starlight. Her hair lifted as if touched by unseen wind, and her voice grew deeper, layered, carrying the sound of many voices at once. Her reflection in the mirror twisted into a taller form, crowned with fire and wings of silver. But standing in the corridor, she remained fragile and trembling, caught between two worlds. Ethan stepped closer, unable to stop himself. Every instinct screamed that he should turn and run, but something stronger held him in place. Lyra turned her head slowly, her silver eyes locking onto his. "You should not be here," she whispered, her voice echoing strangely. Yet she did not send him away. Instead, she pressed her hand against the mirror again, and her reflection leaned forward, as if trapped inside. Ethan swallowed hard, his heart pounding. "What are you?" he asked, the words falling from his lips without thought. Lyra's lips trembled, her glow dimming. "Not what I seem," she whispered. "I am cursed to hide my truth, and yet you watched me without fear." Her voice softened, almost breaking. "That is dangerous for both of us." Before Ethan could respond, a sharp sound echoed down the corridor. Heavy footsteps, guards patrolling the palace. Lyra's expression turned to panic, and in a flash she grabbed Ethan's wrist, pulling him into a dark alcove. Her hand was warm, trembling, yet strong as steel. They pressed against the cold wall, holding their breath as armored guards passed by, their glowing spears humming with energy. When the danger was gone, Lyra released him, her eyes wide. "If they see us together here, they will ask questions," she whispered, "questions that could destroy us both." Ethan wanted to argue, but he saw the fear in her face, and he stayed silent. Lyra leaned closer, her breath brushing his ear. "Promise me, human, promise me you will not speak of what you saw." Ethan nodded slowly, his chest tight. "I promise," he said, though his voice trembled. Her eyes softened for the first time, not cold or guarded, but full of unspoken gratitude. She looked at him as though seeing something rare, something fragile. And then she whispered again, softer than ever, "Do not look away," before disappearing down the corridor, leaving him in darkness. That night, Ethan lay awake, the weight of his promise burning inside him. He knew Lyra carried a secret that could change everything. He also knew that keeping her secret would put him in danger. Yet, he felt something stronger than fear growing inside him, a pull he could not resist. He wanted to see her change again, to understand what she truly was, even if it meant breaking every rule in the alien palace. The next days in the palace felt longer than Ethan could endure. He tried to focus on his duties, writing cultural reports for the council, studying alien customs, and learning their language. But no matter what he did, his thoughts always returned to Lyra. Every glance she gave him in the hall, every whispered word when no one else was listening, pulled him deeper into a world he could not escape. One evening, he found her waiting outside his chamber. Her silver eyes glowed faintly in the half-light, her hands folded in front of her as if hiding nerves. "Walk with me," she whispered, and before he could answer, she turned and drifted into the corridor. Ethan followed without hesitation, his chest tight. They passed through hidden stairways until they reached a balcony overlooking the alien city. The skyline was endless towers of crystal and light, floating bridges glowing like ribbons across the night. The two moons hung low, painting Lyra's face with pale fire. She leaned against the railing, silent for a long moment, before speaking. "Human," she said softly, "do you know what it means to watch me change?" Ethan shook his head, unsure if he even wanted the truth. Her gaze hardened, her voice trembling. "It means you're no longer just a guest. You are part of me, part of my destiny." The words cut through him, both beautiful and terrifying. Ethan stepped closer, his voice low. "Why me?" Lyra turned to face him, her silver eyes searching his. "Because you did not run, you did not turn away," she whispered. "Others before you have screamed, cursed, or called me a monster, but you stayed." Her hand brushed against his, quick, uncertain, but enough to send a shiver through him. Before Ethan could respond, a sharp crack echoed above them. From the shadows of the palace roof, a figure appeared, an armored guard with glowing eyes. He leapt down, spear in hand, his voice cold. "You dare stand with her?" Lyra stepped in front of Ethan, her body tense. "Leave him," she said firmly, her glow flickering across her skin. "He knows nothing." The guard sneered, his gaze narrowing. "You break the law, Lyra. You show your cursed form to an outsider." His spear lit with fire, ready to strike. Ethan's heart raced, fear clawing at him. But before he could move, Lyra raised her hand. Her body shone with sudden light, scales of silver racing across her arm, her voice layered with power. "Do not touch him," she commanded, her tone fierce and unrecognizable. The guard hesitated, caught between obedience and suspicion. Finally, he lowered his spear with a hiss. "The council will hear of this," he growled, retreating into the shadows. Ethan's breath came fast, his body shaking, but Lyra turned back to him with steady eyes. "Now you see," she whispered, "this is not only my secret, it is now our bond." She led him back into the palace, her steps faster than before, her silence heavy. When they reached the safety of his chamber, she stopped and faced him. "If you stay near me, you will be hunted too," she said, her voice breaking. "Our bond is forbidden. Human, you could die because of me." Ethan stared at her, his mind screaming at him to leave, to save himself. But instead, he stepped forward, his words firm. "Then let them come. I will not look away." For the first time, Lyra's eyes filled with something more than fear. Hope, fragile and dangerous. Her lips curved into the faintest smile, trembling yet real. "Then we are bound," she whispered, "and nothing will be the same again." That night, Ethan lay awake, his heart torn between dread and wonder. He had stepped into a secret that could cost him his life. Yet he knew he could never walk away. Lyra's whispered words echoed in his mind. The promise of danger, the pull of destiny. He had crossed a line he could never return from. And deep inside, he felt it was only the beginning. The palace woke the next morning under heavy silence. Ethan could feel it in the halls, in the eyes of the servants who glanced at him and quickly turned away. Whispers followed him wherever he went, though no one dared speak openly. He knew the guard from last night had carried his threat to the council, and now the storm was coming. Lyra appeared at his side, her face pale, her silver eyes clouded with worry. "They summoned you," she whispered, her voice tight. "The council wants answers." Ethan's chest tightened, but he nodded, forcing calm into his breath. "And you?" he asked, but she shook her head. "I cannot stand beside you there. Not yet, they will not allow it." Two guards escorted Ethan through towering doors into the council chamber. It was vast, lined with glowing pillars, and filled with alien nobles seated on thrones of crystal. Their jeweled skins shimmered under the light, their eyes sharp and unkind. At the center sat the High Speaker, cloaked in silver fire, her voice deep and layered. "Human," she said, "you are accused of breaking sacred law, of witnessing what must never be seen." Ethan swallowed hard, his throat dry. He wanted to defend himself, to say he had done nothing wrong. But he knew the truth. He had seen Lyra's change. He had watched her glow with forbidden light. If he denied it, they would call him a liar. If he admitted it, they would condemn her. The chamber grew colder as the speaker's gaze bore into him. "Do you deny these charges?" she demanded. Ethan opened his mouth, but before he could speak, a voice echoed from the shadows. "He is not guilty." Lyra stepped into the chamber, her head bowed, but her steps firm. Gasps rippled across the room as she walked to the center, standing between Ethan and the council. Her voice trembled but carried strength. "It was not his choice, it was mine. I showed him." The council erupted in shouts, their jeweled skin flashing like fire. The High Speaker raised her hand, and silence fell. "Why would you break our oldest law?" the Speaker asked, her tone heavy with anger. Lyra lifted her chin, her silver eyes blazing. "Because he did not look away, because he saw me as I am and did not call me monster." Her body flickered with faint light, the scales appearing across her arms for all to see. The council recoiled, some in horror, some in awe. Ethan felt his breath catch. She was risking everything to protect him. The High Speaker's voice thundered. "You endanger us all. Lyra, your bond with the human cannot be allowed." Guards stepped forward, their spears glowing, but Ethan rushed to her side. "Stop!" he shouted, surprising even himself. "She is not a danger. She is your future." The council froze, their eyes narrowing. Ethan's heart raced, but he pressed on. "You hide her because you fear what she is, but I have seen her strength. And I tell you this, without her, you are weaker. With her, you have hope." The chamber filled with murmurs, but the speaker's expression was unreadable. Finally, she raised her hand again. "We will not decide today," she said coldly. "The human will remain under watch. The maid will be confined, and their fate will be judged after the trial of trust." Ethan turned to Lyra in panic. "What does that mean?" Her silver eyes glistened, her voice soft. "It means they will test us to see if our bond is truth or only illusion." She reached for his hand, her fingers brushing his, but the guards pulled her away before she could touch him. Her final whisper echoed in his ears as they dragged her out. "Do not look away." Ethan was escorted back to his chamber, the door locked behind him. He paced the room, his thoughts a storm. The trial of trust, whatever it was, would decide not only his fate, but hers as well. He had never felt so powerless, yet never so determined. No matter what test they gave, he would not fail her. He repeated her words again and again, like a vow. "Do not look away." The trial of trust was still days away, but the palace was no longer safe. Ethan could feel it in every hallway, every whisper, every stare from guards whose eyes lingered too long. They no longer looked at him as a guest, but as a danger, as someone who carried poison into their sacred halls. And though Lyra was locked away in her own chamber, Ethan knew they were planning more than just a trial. That night, the silence of the palace was broken by an alarm. Crimson light flashed across the walls, and the air vibrated with a deep horn. Ethan rushed to his door, only to find it unlocked, the guards gone, the corridor empty. A strange feeling gripped him, and he ran through the halls, searching for Lyra. He found her in the lower chambers, two guards dragging her forward, their weapons glowing. Her eyes widened when she saw him. "Ethan, run," she cried, but he did not move. Instead, he charged at the guards, his fists useless against their armor, but his desperation fierce. One guard shoved him to the floor, raising his spear to strike. But in that moment, Lyra's body erupted in silver light, scales rippling across her skin, wings flickering into existence for a heartbeat. The guard staggered back in shock, and Lyra seized Ethan's hand, pulling him into a hidden passage. They ran through tunnels beneath the palace. The the walls glowing faintly with old runes. "What is happening?" Ethan gasped, his heart racing. Lyra's voice shook. "The council was never going to wait for the trial. They fear me too much. They sent me to be executed tonight." Her grip on his hand tightened. "And now they will come for you too." The tunnels opened into the alien wilderness, a vast land of glowing forests and rivers of silver light. 2 moons shone above, casting shadows that moved like living things. For the first time since arriving, Ethan breathed free air, but there was no safety in it. Behind them, the palace burned with light as hunters poured into the night, their wings of energy carrying them across the sky. Lyra pulled him into the forest, their steps silent on the moss that glowed faintly under their feet. Every tree seemed alive, its branches shifting, its leaves whispering warnings. Ethan stumbled, but pressed on, his mind spinning. He had left Earth believing he would study alien culture, not flee for his life beside a maid who was not what she seemed. At last, they stopped by a river that shimmered like liquid crystal. Lyra bent down, her hands shaking, her glow dimming. "I cannot keep this form much longer," she whispered, her voice weak. "But I had to bring you with me. You are part of my change now." Ethan knelt beside her, placing his hand over hers. "I don't understand," he said. "Why me? Why do I matter?" Her silver eyes lifted to his, shining with fragile light. "Because you do not fear me," she whispered. "Because when I change, you see not a monster, but me." Her words pierced him deeper than any weapon. He had no answer, only the truth in his chest, that he could not leave her, even if it killed him. The forest around them stirred, and Ethan looked up to see shadows moving between the trees. Hunters, their armor glowing, their weapons raised, closing in. Lyra struggled to stand, her body trembling, her glow flickering. Ethan stepped in front of her, his fists clenched, though he knew he could not fight them. Still, he whispered the same words she had given him. "Do not look away." The hunters circled, but Lyra's glow suddenly flared, brighter than before. Her body shifted, wings of silver stretching wider, her skin a canvas of light and shadow. For a moment, she stood in her true form, radiant, terrifying, beautiful. The hunters faltered, their weapons shaking. Ethan's heart pounded as he looked at her, not as a maid, not as a cursed being, but as something greater than he had ever imagined. The light faded, and Lyra collapsed into his arms, weak but alive. Ethan held her close, his voice fierce. "I will protect you." Even as hunters regrouped, even as the forest darkened, he knew there was no turning back. Their bond was no longer secret, no longer safe, and the whole world would now hunt them for it. The forest no longer whispered with peace, it roared with the sound of pursuit. Ethan carried Lyra in his arms, her body light, yet trembling with weakness. Her glow had faded to a soft shimmer, but her breath came shallow, every inhale a battle. Behind them, the hunters pressed closer, their weapons lighting the dark like falling stars. He ran until his legs ached, until his lungs burned, but still he did not stop. Finally, the trees opened to a rocky clearing where alien stone towers jutted from the earth like broken teeth. Ethan set Lyra gently against the stone, brushing her hair from her face. "Stay with me," he whispered, his voice raw. "I'll keep you safe." Her silver eyes flickered open, weak but sharp. "You cannot fight them," she said softly, her voice strained. "They will kill you, and then me." Ethan shook his head, his fists clenched. "Then let them try," he growled, even though fear coiled tight inside him. The hunters emerged from the trees, their armor glowing, their wings of energy spreading wide. They moved like shadows of fire, encircling the clearing, their voices cold. "Surrender, the cursed one," their leader commanded, his spear blazing with light. Ethan stepped in front of Lyra, his body trembling but his stance unbroken. "You'll take her only over my body," he said, his voice louder than he expected. The hunters laughed, their metallic tones sharp and cruel. But one stepped forward, raising his spear, ready to strike. Ethan braced himself, no weapon in his hands, only the fire of desperation in his heart. The spear lunged forward, faster than he could move. But in that instant, Lyra's glow erupted again, searing through the night. She rose behind him, her wings of silver stretching full for the first time. Her skin blazed with light, her eyes twin suns burning with fury and grief. Her voice was layered, echoing through the clearing, "You will not touch him." The force of her words cracked the stones beneath their feet. The hunters staggered back, their wings faltering, their armor smoking under her radiance. But such power tore through her body like fire. She screamed, her light flickering wildly, her knees buckling as if the transformation itself was breaking her. Ethan turned, catching her before she could collapse, his arms locking around her trembling form. "Stop! You'll destroy yourself," he pleaded, his own tears burning his eyes. But Lyra shook her head, her voice faint. "I cannot stop. Not while you are in danger." The hunters regrouped, fear in their eyes but determination in their stance. They rushed forward again, spears glowing brighter. Ethan knew she could not hold them off for long. Without thinking, he tore a spear from the ground where one hunter had fallen. The weapon was heavy, too heavy for him, but he raised it high, his body trembling. He stepped forward, placing himself between Lyra and the hunters once more. The first blow came fast, and Ethan blocked it clumsily, sparks flying as the weapon vibrated in his hands. Pain ripped through his arms, but he did not let go. Another hunter slashed at him, and the spear grazed his shoulder, blood soaking his shirt. Still he fought, clumsy and desperate, but unyielding. Lyra's silver glow wrapped around him like a shield, but he knew it was her last strength. The leader raised his spear for a killing strike. Ethan saw the light coming, brighter than the moon's. He knew in that moment he could not win, but he also knew he would not run. He planted his feet, lifted the heavy spear, and whispered to himself, "I will not look away." The blow never landed. Instead, Lyra screamed, her wings exploding into a storm of silver fire. The clearing shook as her true form burst free, radiant and uncontainable. Her light engulfed the hunters, their armor cracking, their wings dissolving. They stumbled back, blinded, terrified, before fleeing into the forest, their voices echoing in retreat. When the light faded, Lyra collapsed into Ethan's arms, her body limp, her glow nearly gone. He cradled her against his chest, his tears falling onto her face. "You saved me," he whispered, his voice breaking, "but at what cost?" Her eyes opened weakly, her silver gaze soft. "The cost was mine to bear," she breathed, her voice faint but steady. "But you chose to fight for me, even when you could not win." Ethan pressed his forehead to hers, his chest heaving. "I'll fight for you again, as many times as it takes," he vowed. Her lips curved into the faintest smile, trembling. "Then you're truly part of me now," she whispered, before slipping into unconsciousness. Ethan held her close, his arms tight around her. The forest was quiet again, but he knew peace would not last. The hunters would return, the council would not forgive. But he did not care. He had faced death and chosen her. And in that choice, their bond had become unbreakable. The night passed in silence, broken only by the faint sound of Lyra's breathing in Ethan's arms. The forest glowed softly under the twin moons, silver rivers flowing between the trees like veins of light. Ethan sat against a stone, his body aching, his shoulder bleeding, but his mind fixed only on her. He held her close, whispering promises she could not hear, his vow echoing again and again. "I will not look away." When dawn came, Lyra stirred, her silver eyes opening weakly. She looked at Ethan, her lips curving into the faintest smile. "You stayed," she whispered, her voice fragile. Ethan pressed her hand to his chest, his words steady. "I will always stay." But peace did not last. The skies split with the sound of engines, and ships of the council descended, their wings of crystal unfolding like blades. Hunters poured into the clearing, their weapons raised, but this time they did not strike. Instead, the High Speaker herself stepped forward, her silver cloak flowing, her gaze heavy with judgment. "Lyra of the Hidden Line," the Speaker's voice thundered. "Your bond with the human has broken our laws, but it has also shown us what fear blinded us to." The council formed a circle around them, their jeweled skin reflecting the dawn light. Whispers rippled among them as they looked at Ethan, wounded, weaponless, yet standing tall before them. Lyra tried to rise, but Ethan steadied her, his voice low. "Save your strength, let me speak." He stepped forward, his body trembling, but his voice clear. "You call her cursed, you call her dangerous," he said, his eyes fixed on the council. "But you are blind. She is your hope, your future, and without her, you will fall to fear forever." His words rang across the clearing, and the silence that followed was heavier than any weapon. The Speaker studied him for a long moment, then turned her gaze to Lyra. "Show us, child," she commanded, her voice softer. "Show us what you truly are." Lyra's silver eyes met Ethan's, fear and strength burning together. He nodded, his whisper steady. "Do not look away." She closed her eyes, her body trembling as light spread across her skin. Wings of silver unfolded, her form shifting into the radiant queen form Ethan had glimpsed before. The forest lit with her glow, the rivers shining brighter as if answering her. She stood tall, her power no longer hidden, her beauty undeniable, her presence unbroken. The council gasped, some recoiling, some bowing. The Speaker raised her hand, silencing them, her gaze never leaving Lyra. "For generations we feared this change, called it curse," the Speaker said slowly. "But perhaps it is gift, perhaps it is the future we denied." Then her eyes turned to Ethan, sharp and searching. "And you, human, why did you stay, when all others would have run?" Ethan's chest tightened, but his answer came without doubt. "Because she is not a curse, because she is not alone, and because I could not look away." The Speaker's eyes softened, her voice calm but heavy. "Then your bond is true, and the law will change." Shock rippled through the council, but none dared speak against her. The Speaker lifted her voice for all to hear. "Lyra will no longer hide. The human will not be punished. Their bond will stand as a bridge between our worlds." Lyra's wings dimmed, her body softening back in her fragile form. She stumbled, but Ethan caught her, holding her close. Her silver eyes shimmered with tears as she whispered, "They see me now. They finally see." Ethan smiled, pressing his forehead to hers. "And I will always see you." The Speaker stepped back, the council dispersing, their decision final. Hunters lowered their weapons, no longer enemies, but protectors. The forest seemed to breathe again, light flowing gentle across the land. Ethan held Lyra's hand, their fingers intertwining, unbreakable. That night, as the moons rose high and the palace bells rang in acceptance, Lyra leaned close, her whisper soft as starlight. "Human, watch me change," she said, her silver eyes glowing with peace for the first time. And Ethan, his heart steady, his vow eternal, answered with a smile, "I will never look away."